Welcome to today's edition of Impact TV. Today we're joined with the Ironworkers General Treasurer, Ron Piksa, who just came on board with the Ironworkers here in Washington January 1st. Ron, welcome. How long have you been an ironworker?
40 years, March of this year.
I'll be darned. And how'd you become an ironworker?
I started in high school with vocational training, wood shop, metal shop, auto shop. Auto shop teacher referred me to a gas station where I began working in the evenings after school. And my neighbor, Merle Johnson, was an ironworker himself. And I got pretty handy at working at automobiles, and he saw that I had some mechanical talents. And so he suggested I went down to the Ironworkers Apprenticeship Program in Tacoma, Washington. And that was in 1973, just after graduating from high school. And in February of 1974, I became an official member of the Ironworkers International Union.
I'll be darned. So you're referred by a neighbor. So what did you like best about being an ironworker back in those days?
I liked the people. I liked the type of work. I liked the flexibility it gave you to work different areas where you weren't going to one place every day to go to work, that you were able to work with a variety of different skill levels, different types of projects. You weren't doing one thing all the time. You were consistently challenged by different types of tasks and projects.
Mm-hmm. What was your favorite aspect of the trade?
My favorite aspect was the structural steel, the miscellaneous iron, rigging, working around cranes. I preference doing that type of work over the rebar and ornamental. In our area, there wasn't a lot of ornamental work. It was a mixed local union, so you were either doing the rebar work or you were doing the structural steel work. In the Tacoma, Washington area, there were a lot of mills, pulp mills at that time, and then eventually there was nuke plants and then oil modular work in the area.
Can you look back to those days and think, wow, there was one particular job that I really enjoyed or a particular project?
There were a variety of them. I think it was more different contractors that you worked for. The iron piles, they never seemed to change a lot, different types of buildings, but even then there was a lot of similarities, but the people became more of a preference on where you worked. You get a gang of guys that got used to working around one another, and that became even a job that by many you would think that that would have to be a horrible job, but if you got around the right group of guys, it could be a great job. So I think there was a lot of great jobs for me, a lot of great people out in the field, and that made the work fun.
That's an interesting recurring theme that I see with almost every iron worker I talk to. It's really more about the people rather than the project you're working on. What did you like least about being an ironworker back then?
I think the uncertainties that are brought with the economics ups and downs, that you're not consistently employed a lot of times, and it's just the characteristics of the industry, and but you never really get used to it. That always creates a hardship on your family, and you have to learn to budget differently than I think people in a lot of other industries do, because you are faced with the uncertainties. It was never a given that you were going to work 52 weeks out of the year. You didn't have paid holidays or paid vacations, so if you wanted those type of things, also you had to be disciplined enough to put away on your own. And I think that is a trait that not only the ironworkers, but a lot of the other building trades, craft people, become pretty proficient at, and that's handling money. You have to. The career path, these type of industries within the construction field itself forces you to look at the economics of uncertainties and then plan for them.
How would you characterize safety back in 1973, 74 versus what we see in 2014?
Well, back then, most of the safety was put on you. And that gets back to why you like to work around certain individuals. You got comfortable with people that were knowledgeable of the industry, They always made safety a priority, even though that you didn't have the same regulations, rules, laws, those type of things that have come into place today to force safety on the workplace. Safety was always a consideration. Nobody wanted to have a fatality. Nobody wanted to have a job that had a mishap on it. There was a kind of a unsaid rule out there that your value or you as a hand were a little bit diminished in your capabilities if you continued to have or had problems with safeties on your job site. So internally, I think there was a policing that went on within the industry itself. But regulations did help. That made a safer all workplace, especially on bigger jobs where you had multiple crafts working, and it was necessary that that somebody outside of the crafts themselves intervened so that you could establish consistency to the workplace and fairness to the employers and to the hands out there, because then everybody knew what the rules were and what your expectations were when you went to the job site.
So you started out in 1973, you worked on the tools for many, many years. There was a day in your life where you decided, I'm going to run for local union office. About when was that, and what made you decide to go in that direction?
Well, in the late 70s, after I graduated from the apprenticeship, again, I was encouraged to go into the direction of working with the local union politically or on the executive board, recording secretary, taking some of the jobs that weren't not necessarily seen as the best jobs within the local union, but they were jobs that you needed people to fill. And so once I got involved, enjoyed that aspect of the industry. I liked to see the internal workings of it, and got involved with a group of people that convinced me that if you were going to make a living at this trade, that you couldn't only be a good hand out there, that you needed to give back to the local union that provided the training and was providing the work opportunities for you. And so I kept involved. I was everything from recording secretary, executive board member, president, to business manager of the local union. So,
when you started out as an iron worker and then you went into local union offices and became business manager, did you ever think you're going to work at the highest levels of the Ironworkers International?
No, I never ever imagined it. In fact, at those times, I didn't even know really what the highest level was in the international. Typically, when you come in, you think that business manager is the highest level in the union, and you're a lot of times you being able to make a living depended on your relationship with that business manager. And today, it's not quite like it was back then. I think politics played a bigger role in you getting employment during the period of time when I started in the early 70s than it does now today. But I will say this, that it hasn't totally left the industry either. But no, as you grow in the industry, as you grow in just like growing out in the workplace where you take other more responsible positions, foreman and superintendent positions, all of a sudden those open up different groups of people to you, and all of a sudden you see a different workplace than you did when you're just working with the tools on the iron, or doing whatever task it was you had to do for whatever dispatch or job or project you were on. And I think that's what developed also with being involved politically in the local union. First you get to elected office, you see the different people at the executive board level within the local union, and then you run for district council delegate, and then all of a sudden you see different people, different levels of administration. You get introduced to all the other business managers, and then also the district council president, who is usually a general organizer for the international. And then from there, going at different conferences and different meetings, all of a sudden you meet vice presidents and the general officers, like myself, the general treasurer, and then you meet the general secretary and the general president. And you continue those relationships over years, especially if you pursue a political career and run for offices, then those people become more familiar with you. You still look at them as unattainable positions because really your international, the international person that you're accountable to, even as a business manager, is the district council president. So, you know, if you were viewing as where do I want to be in this organization someday, it would be the district council president, because that's what you see as the international level. And then from there, as they say, the sky's the limit.
Well, you were district council president in the Pacific Northwest District Council for a long time. Tell me a little bit about your role there and what you accomplished in that position.
The what's different about being a district council president than a business manager is the business manager has an elected group of officials within the local union that he has to deal with on a monthly or regular basis. The district council president has that same group, only they have it on a little different level because they're dealing more with the district council business managers as their executive board. So there's a different level of communication that goes on between the different district council president and the business managers of the district councils. But it all relates to how they represent the terms of and conditions of employment to the membership, or work on growth strategies to better job opportunities, not only for the member but for the employers also. Mm-hmm. And on the district council president's level, you're usually the lead in negotiations and the representative of the contract, and so you're interacting with the employer associations, and you have to be more familiar, and you get more familiar on what their needs are, not just what the union side is. And so that becomes your job, is to put those pieces together. And then from there, there's also the national building trades, there's the state labor councils, there's interactions with all of the union entities that you get involved with, and not necessarily on a daily or a monthly basis, but you have to be aware of how those people also interact with your local or your district council. And in addition to that, you tend to get more politically involved because you're working with the administrators now that affect policy change and things that affect your ability to grow the locals and the membership in your geographical area that you represent.
So you mentioned that you had more direct face time with the employers in the Pacific Northwest District Council as a result of your job as a district council president. Do you view that as an advantage coming into this new position, having seen those contractors up close?
I think it's almost mandatory that you hold those type of positions. It's just like any job, there's a progression of responsibilities and duties that you start accumulating or acquire or are responsible under whatever job that you might be assigned or appointed to or elected to. And so those become a key to you having the knowledge to interact on a more effective level when you're dealing with the employers.
Mm-hmm. So late last year, General President Wise approaches you and says, "Ron, I'd like you to relocate to Washington." What was going through your head when he first approached you?
Well, with General President Wise and myself, we've interacted on different committees, different conferences, different issues over several years during the period of time that he'd held various offices as General Treasurer and also the General Secretary. So it wasn't just one day all of a sudden General President Wise had come up and said, "Ron, we want you for this position." Again, it was a lead up through a relationship that was built over time, working on different issues, how you handle the district council, how you work with employer associations, how you ratify contracts, what does your workload look like, and what type of feedback do they get back from the industry on you. And so it's just like any position over a period of time. It's not all of a sudden this just happened. It's more that you work into that relationship with the general president, and then they have confidence in you at that level to put the responsibility they did, or Walt did, with me.
It's a big responsibility. The operations of the International are very complex. Has your perception changed from when you were asked to come here and you didn't work day to day with all the staff here versus you've been in the job for a number of months now? Has your perception of the International Union and its operations changed?
Well, absolutely. And again, I think you have to look back at each transition you make in the organization, and as you assume another position, there's only a certain part of it that you see on the outside. And it's not that you aren't aware of those type of things, but until you're actually there, you're not privy to a lot of the information because it's just not part of your other jobs. Mm-hmm. So once you come back to International, without a doubt, it's at another level. Mm-hmm. The responsibility are above the expectations of any job that I have had previously to being at the International. You assume responsibilities that affect a larger group of people. The finances are at a larger level. Again, they all affect larger groups of people. And so, again, just like we talked about when I started out, and all of a sudden you assume or are elected to an office in the local union, you start seeing a different set of people, a different layer of responsibilities. Well, as you escalate up through the ranks, it's the same way. And today I'm exposed to people I used to just read about in magazines, mm-hmm. and I find myself working with them on projects on a day-to-day basis, and just like you and I, sure. Sitting here talking today, and we've had many discussions right. Over the years, just not when I was back or appointed to the General Treasurer's position, mm-hmm. but previously on right. the Impact Board. And so those things all of a sudden aren't so unfamiliar to you, and they become more familiar to you, get more comfortable working with them. I'll tell you this, I have not become familiar with all aspects of the job. I am learning lots of it. And that was part of my decision for coming back here, is taking on a new challenge and pushing yourself. I think that's something that everybody's got to look at, so that you give other people opportunities. That was another consideration. Mm-hmm. When I left the council, was the council going to be in good shape, and were there people to assume those jobs? Right. And there was, and so it's operating very well, and it's given me the opportunity of not having to look back on my decision and go forward.
So there must be something that you got here early January, you started working into your job that was a total surprise to you. Like, oh my God, I can't believe this is the way this is, or it could be a positive, it could be a negative. What do you think was the biggest surprise that you encountered in your first early days as General Treasurer?
Well, overwhelmed in a lot of aspects. I'm an iron worker. I've got good iron worker skills. I've been officers of the local union, but you're not ever totally prepared to assume the type of responsibilities here that are asked of you. And not only that, I think that people underestimate what it takes to relocate during that period of time when you're assuming a high-level position. Mm-hmm. Those type of things put a significant stress on an individual mm-hmm. and your family. Mm-hmm. So those are other things, I think, outside of the business aspect of what we do, that people really short-sighted, and to a certain aspect I did too. Mm-hmm. I didn't think that the challenge of balancing work and family life would be any different than it had been, but it is. It's a big commitment when you move from one side of the country to the other, from the state of Washington to the city of Washington, right. and then reestablishing a home, and in addition to that, keep all your family members intact and communications, and then still be able to perform and learn the new job.
Right, which is a big challenge unto itself. What do you think your biggest challenge is as General Treasurer?
Well, fulfilling the commitment of General President Wise and General Secretary Dean and trying to double our growth in membership. I think that's going to be a big challenge. I don't think that it is because we're not up to the task. I think you're probably better equipped with the officers we have today than we ever have been. The factors out there, the political climate, a lot of the business climate, a lot of the effects of the economy in general are very strong headwinds. And so our challenges today to do that are huge, seismic in fact, as far as attaining those type of growths. It's going to take a lot of concerted effort, not on our part, but on everybody's part, right down to that same person I was when I came in, and getting those people up to speed faster on, what things and issues are critical to us, so that everybody's a team in this growth strategy, just not the general officers.
Growth is absolutely and utterly indispensable. So when you are at the end of your tenure, you've worked as the general treasurer for many years, and you throw the keys to the next Ironworker general treasurer, what will you have accomplished?
Hopefully we'll have made strides to doubling growth in our membership. Also, another goal of General President Wise was safety. And I would like to see that we do have a year of 0 fatalities. I think that would probably be, to me, as big of an accomplishment as the doubling our growth. But again, in either of those two goals, I would be happy of attaining a small portion of them. I would just be ecstatic if we're able to, hit our mark. And believe me, there's not a day that I drive away from the office or come to it that I'm not thinking of both those two things.
If you could sit down with each one of the 100,000 ironworkers and have a cup of coffee or a sip of beer or a can of pop with them, what would you like to impart to them about your career, the international, your life as an ironworker? What would you like to talk to them about?
How they can have the same opportunities that I had, how they could have the same great life that it provided me, how that as a union ironworker, no matter what title you hold at the end of the day, and I have said this at union meetings, that the title that I carry that means more to me than anything is that I am a union ironworker. And with that comes along the identity that you will have for a lifetime. And it makes you a person in society that has a place. And as long as you have that place and that security, all of the other things start coming together for you, whether it's your family, whether it's other opportunities out in the industry and even in personal life. So I think that what I would convey to somebody that was coming in like I was coming in is just those same things. Apply yourself, listen to people, keep your nose clean, and things will work out for you. You'll have a great life, equal to or better than the one I was able to make out of it.
Outstanding. Well, Ron, thank you for joining us today. This is a wrap-up on our first edition of Impact TV. We look forward to seeing you again in the near future, where you can meet other people just like Ron Piksa, the General Treasurer of the Ironworkers Union. Thanks again, Ron.
Thank you, Kevin.